period. So, you know, again, when I saw Eric and I had some back and forth communications on Wednesday morning, I forget what it was. Maria sent an email which Eric sent to me about objections. Incidentally, Eric told me that Matt, because, and this is when I first found out that it was Matt's information sheet that was an issue, Matt was staying out of this. And I thought, oh, that's smart, Matt should stay out of it. So that was that, and Matt stayed out of it. And so I was looking to Eric to, you know, to be yay or nay. And Eric even made a comment that respectfully, this is not my position. Well, yeah, it was. But in the end, I get these emails saying from Luis, I guess, me and Gustavo are headed over to the management office for the telephone conference. I go, okay, well, you know. So they get on this phone call, and then they layer us. Maria is, you know, the phone is apparently being grabbed out of people's hands for people to talk about everything. And, you know, again, I feel like I was deceived by both by both Gustavo and Luisa, because the first thing I asked was, is this all going on in the management office? I.e., was this in the office? Meaning not off to the side being done by them, but in Eric's office. And Eric said, I'm here. And that was pretty much all I heard from Eric. Again, we had a discussion. I gave some opinions. The opinions I gave, which is what I just said right now, which is that there's a rule, there's a deadline, and there's no prohibition about sending out candidate information sheets after the deadline. There's just a requirement to do so when they're timely established, when they're timely submitted. So, you know, again, I then start getting, well, I did start getting, I got an email a couple hours later from Luisa who summarized what I had said, except she was mistelling the truth. I'm saying that as positively as I can. And again, you know, one of the things I didn't say in my email yesterday is with Luisa, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. But when I saw the email that Gustavo apparently sent that he didn't send to me, where he's reciting what I said, which is untrue, and again, if there's any witness as to what I said or didn't say, Maria heard it. And, you know, I just gave the opinion that, look, I'll come to a meeting and we'll listen to the facts and I'll give you my opinion, but there's no prohibition. There's only the requirement to send out timely sheets. And so that's what happened. So now, you know, again, along the way, on that same Wednesday, everybody had agreed this would be the meeting date. And here I am, and here you are, and here half the board isn't. Which I find, you know, incidentally, one of the things I commented on at the time was when I finally realized, because the only one I knew that was even involved, because Eric said Matt's staying out of it because his is an information sheet, I didn't realize it was more than Matt. Turns out Maria is one of them. Is there a third one? Is there
Mr. Vella.
Mr. Vella. Okay. So, you know, again, when using the language I know the best, when Gustavo and Luisa were trying to put words in my mouth, and I really shouldn't say that about Gustavo. He was really not talking that much. Luisa was doing most of the talking. But they kept trying to put words in my mouth, and I kept saying, that's not the case. I said, but you know, now that I'm hearing, because at the time I didn't even know Renee was involved. Obviously I knew that Maria was involved because of her involvement in objecting and all that sort of stuff. And what happened, I said, look, I hear what you're saying, Luisa, but it seems to me that you're playing, this is a lot of politics. You know, clearly the people that want to follow the rule absolutely are against the people that might get their candidate information sheets in. And what are we talking about here? The difference of people being advised of the candidate's background and information or not. I said, where is the harm in everybody being advised? Well, the rule is the rule. I said, admittedly, the rule is the rule. And I even had responded to Gustavo several days earlier when he said, isn't the rule this? And I go, yes, that's the rule. But again, I believe that, and I don't think it's necessary to get into the facts now because you don't have a meeting and, you know, so, but given certain facts, I would have even recommended that candidate information sheets go out late. If the facts weren't there, I would have recommended against it. But again, if a board of directors said, you know what, we're sending out everybody's sheet early, late, as long as the second notice hasn't gone out yet, I totally agree with that. Not a problem. I did send this around, distributed to all of my lawyers in my firm. There are several that said, no, rule's a rule. I said, yeah, that's the rule, but probably the guy who I respect more than anybody else, without being coached, because I typically ask my questions without leading my other lawyers over, they give me answers that I want to hear. This particular lawyer, who's very well published, that said, I agree with Rodell. There's no prohibition of the rule about sending out a candidate information sheet late. Is it a great idea? Probably not, but there you go. So,
Thank you, David.
no problem.
Like I said, this isn't a meeting. We don't have a quorum, and so if anybody who wants to leave from the board or anybody else is welcome to leave.
The frustration, again, as I see it, is that not only was political, as I called it in my email, political football being played then, it's being played right now.
Right.
There's clearly people who just don't want to listen or discuss and make decisions, and they've chosen just not to come to a meeting to show how they can do that.
Well, they're doing more than that. This is a strategy in order for them to get what they're looking to do.
Look, yeah.
My belief, everyone, is that I've got better things to do with my time than be a board of director. I've done this for 3 years, okay? But when you get elected by your building, you're accepting the responsibility to listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly for the benefit of everyone else. Also means that you need to do what's right for the betterment of the community. I believe, and it's my opinion, that the 4 board members who are not here are doing it in defiance to manipulate the election for their own benefit because they have a plan in order and how they're going to proceed in 2019. And I think that we're not electing the President of the United States here. Because if the state of Florida can extend the recount for a week, we can send out information to all the homeowners. Okay? What we do is a volunteer position. Okay? You elect us because we actually say we'll be the sucker who's going to take the heat. All right? So I've always felt that if you want to do something positive for this community, you run. And I believe that if you sit on this board 1 year, 2 years, or more years, you should do something and show something for it. But the members that are not here have nothing to show for it. Okay? Maybe one has been a treasurer. Maybe another one has done a committee. But 2 of them, namely Gustavo Tellez and Louisa Conway, and I'll go on record to say, what have they done for this community? Nothing of note that are in the minutes for the last 3 years. And these are 2 people that are trying to manipulate your future. If they were true board members, if they respected the integrity of being a board of directors, they would be here tonight. I challenged them to be here. They clearly chose not to be here. I think that sends a very powerful message to everyone, and I think that message needs to get out. Personally, anyone who is running for the board has the right to have their resume or statement shared. I am not running. Again, I'm tired of their BS. I'm happy that I'm not going to be part of a board that's going to feature those 2 people because we didn't get anything done last year. Several of us on this board were very productive for 2 years. You all know what we accomplished. This last year, we didn't do anything. Why? Because the 4 people that are not here this evening prevented us from doing that. So I would think that you would want to protect your investment. It doesn't mean that you're spending money. It just means that you have people that actually care about the community and are trying to make improvements, that are listening to what you need, what we need to consider, versus trying to create dust and kick up things and recite statues and don't even move the needle. Okay? That's not what this is about. So I have to say that I am embarrassed to serve on a board with the individuals who are not here this evening, and I'm embarrassed to represent this community when information isn't able to be shared. I run the messenger. We're very transparent. We have 4 people here who are choosing not to be transparent. They're acting like children. That's my opinion. These are my words. They don't have to like me. I could care less. But I do say that I am very concerned that if two board members who fought so hard that we manage our conversations with our lawyer, called for a closed meeting and basically pinned Matt, Rudy, and myself to a wall, accusing us of running the board. I'm sorry, we're actually the only ones who are actually doing anything before Tom joined. And wanted to know everything that was going on. Wanted to know what was going on with our conversations with Rigel. We said, stop. And Gustavo was ringing Rigel's number all the time, writing all these emails, running up the legal bills.
35.
If you guys want to know how much money we spent 3 times our budget. And without knowing the exact numbers at this moment, I'll tell you right now, a good amount comes from Gustavo and Luisa calling David on things that they shouldn't have because they fought so hard to minimize the conversations with David. They're the ones calling David. Because we agreed, as David said earlier this evening, only the president and Eric speak to David. But if the particular board member wants to speak and the president says, sure, you can join the call, they can join the call. The fact that they did this meeting with David, they ran up your money, and they even lied about it. And we have it in writing. I don't think you want that kind of person on the board. Now, I can say this because I don't have a dog in this race because I'm not going to run. All right, I'm not going to be on the board next year. But I think you should all consider that. These are people we live with. Do you want those people making these kinds of decisions about your future? I certainly don't.
Well, could I? Well, I'm just.
It's not a meeting, so
No,
there's
it's
no.
not a meeting, so
Yeah,
I
there's no
can-
chair.
I can still state my
still-
age and claim mental or whatever. But I happen to be on the board of Colony 3. And I'm trying to understand what's going on. So could you, and I don't want to continue and have this thing, what is the issue right now? Because we saw who last night, we went to their apartment.
Beth Hicks.
Yeah, we saw Beth Hicks, and I said I'm going to the meeting, and I assumed that she would have gone to the meeting, and.
Well, not everybody comes. Only
Well,
the
I'm
representative from
embarrassed,
each building.
well, just one quick question. Could you, in a nutshell, or maybe I could see Eric off after the meeting, he could explain it, what is the problem right now here? Because I would like to know.
I'm not the chair or
May,
anything right now.
okay, my name is Maria Bueno.
Yeah,
I live in Botanica.
yeah,
In Botanica, we have 4 people running for the board. In your
I
building,
thought you only had one representative to
no, ma'am.
Every
building has 2.
representatives.
two.
Okay,
right.
so if more than 2 people choose to run, there is an election in the building. In Emerald Bay, I believe you don't have an election.
No, because I chose not to
I
run.
think
Okay.
they're appointed.
No, ma'am.
No, they are not.
It's
Apparently it was a long time ago, but
Yeah.
it's been changed.
Yeah,
It's
so-
voted on
so-
by the owners.
And I chose
so
not
if
to
I'm
run.
if I may clarify, the only affected building is Botanica. Emerald Bay does not have an election, so there's no effect.
But they have a representative.
Correct.
Two.
Correct.
Currently, we do.
And right, and they will.
Everybody will always.
Everyone will
two
have two.
representatives each.
Who are they?
Louisa Conway and Tony Kamea will represent.
Will represent you.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Because I chose not to run, so there will be no election.
So you asked what's going on.
yeah.
So there is a deadline to declare candidacy, and we all met that deadline. There's also a deadline, then a different deadline, to send in an information sheet. I now read the statute. I was not an expert in the statute, so I asked, and I was, because it said the 25th, and I asked, and actually the same courtesy had been afforded in the past. It's Christmas Day. I have it written down. I don't have it typed. Is it the 25th? And I was told, as was Matt, and I believe also Renee, because the office is closed, it's till the 28th. It's not and then I found out the mailing was 18 days later. So it has not affected anything. It came in, the PDF went in on, instead of going in on the 25th, which no one would have opened, it went in on the 28th, as per what I had been told, as was told Matt Bramson. After this happened, and I happily went on my way, I found out that Mr. Tejas, who is a candidate in Botanica, and Luisa, who is not a candidate in Botanica, she lives in your building,
Yeah.
there is no, doesn't affect her in any way, are trying to keep our sheets, our information sheet, Matt Bramson's and myself's, from going in because they went in 18 days before the mail out is due versus 20 days. I read the statute and I now understand that it was information that there was no malice. Someone looked at the date and said, oh, the office is closed 2 days, so it's 2 days later because the mail out is going out 18 days after the fact. And so that was that. I have now read the statute, and I'll see if I can explain it. The statute says that the election, if there's an election, in our building there is an election.
Right.
In your building there is none.
Right, I understand.
That the mail out can go out no sooner than, correct me if I'm wrong, 34 days prior to the election date and no later than 14 days. As such, the sheet should be in 35 days. So now I'm just a person, I'm interpreting that is so there would be no disruption. That if an association is going to mail it out on the 34th day, that it does not create a change in the mail out, in addition to mailing, to anything. And in the past, I can say, because I am a procrastinator, that I've been afforded that luxury, as have other people, as long as it has absolutely no effect on the mail out, if there are candidates. And that's all that's going on. And they're fighting to keep,
This whole thing is about when you mail your application?
no ma'am.
No.
When I
No,
sent in
yeah.
an information sheet, the
Two different dates. You
yes,
have
two
the
different dates,
application
yeah.
Must be in by a certain
Right.
date. The information
And the
sheet must be in
information.
by a
Right,
certain
it was-
date.
right.
There must
The
be-
back
there
end.
must
Right.
be
Essentially
something
a-
deeper than this that I'm not understanding.
That's
No.
that
That's
was
the problem. I wanna know.
There's two things.
That's it, first of all.
Someone is trying to keep my information
Why?
sheet.
Why?
You would have to ask those
Wanna know
people and we
why?
asked them to come.
You wanna know why? Because they want Tony Cameo on the board.
Who
Okay,
does?
that answers the.
Who
No,
does?
not on the board, but it's.
They want him as president.
Yeah.
As
Who
president
does?
of this.
The four
board.
people that are on
That's
here.
an opinion, I'm sure that's
That's
an
an opinion,
opinion.
but I'll tell you this right
It's a
now.
right
Now it's
opinion.
coming
You
a
heard
little
it here.
clear. I'm getting a little clearer.
We live in the building with
I know.
Tony.
I know, he's my neighbor. I represent you, okay?
Are
I'm
you
telling
on
this
the
What do you
board?
mean you
weren't you?
Yes, he is. He's on
the
your board.
representative
He's on
of
your
your
board.
building this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
Until January 25th.
I'm
He
the one
represents you.
representing.
Now, I have a question, I do have a question for you, David, and it's if I may just finish. If the election sheets go out, let's say that you they go out,
No.
what are the consequences? Are there any legal consequences to the association?
I
Is there
believe
any
that if
are there
anybody
any
were to-
monetary
I
issues to the
believe that if
association?
anybody were to challenge the fact that the association sent out late resumes, I'll call them just because it's easier, nothing could, they would say, don't do that again, or we don't care.
Is there any monetary effect to
Would
the
there be a
association?
monetary effect? Is it
Well, no, I'm
voluntary?
asking, can someone file a lawsuit which would then cause the
I mean,
association?
anybody can file a complaint,
A
anybody
complaint.
can file a lawsuit, anybody can do all of those things. I don't believe, based upon the rules, the Florida Administrative Code, that there is anything that prohibits an association from sending out an untimely filed candidate information sheet.
Is there enough time between the receipt of the resume information and the election date? Is that what
We
it
can just
should
push
be?
back the election
Yeah.
date.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this. What day, let me ask, this is an open question. What day does everyone know to be tax day?
April 15th.
April 15th. What happens when April 15th falls on a Saturday? When are your taxes due?
Two
Goes
days
to
later.
Monday,
Extend
later.
it to the Monday.
You
That's all
extend
that
it to the
happens.
Monday.
That's
My
all that
point
happens.
is this. It's the exact same kind of thing. Someone said the 25th because that was counting the days back. Someone didn't realize that was Christmas. The office was closed. I mean, guys, come on. We're an association.
Right.
This is about information, about transparency. We have individuals who want to be on this board, okay, that actually want to handle the responsibility. Let them share their resume sheets.
Not necessarily. Some people want to be on the board and not take the responsibility.
Absolutely correct.
I have been on the board, and I've seen it in action. There are plenty of people, not plenty, but there are a few people who want the position, but don't really want to do anything.
Correct. And that's one reason why, A, those people are not here this evening, and another reason why I'm not running again. And I'm just going to throw this out there. This is my opinion. I believe that anyone who wants to run for the board must agree to actually do something positive for the community in their time. If they don't, no, showing up is just one thing. I'm talking about leading a committee.
That's the one thing that didn't happen today.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Showing up.
Because if you show that you're physically here and you're trying to do positive good, then you earn the respect and the right to rerun. If you don't, you're out.
I thought this meeting was about the air dryers because we have to get the new vented air dryers. That's why I came and talked. Nobody told me I was.
We would have
that
talked
unless-
about those things if this was a regular board meeting, because
Right.
we would have had.
But
you know,
Tony
because-
Gamaco was on the board. He wants to be on the board for what reason?
No, he is, he will be on your board, sir. It's an automatic. You,
It's
no
automatic
one,
because there's
it's
only two
automatic
people
because no
running for
one
that
else
position.
ran.
So what's,
Only two people
so
put their
what's the
name.
problem?
Again,
Your building, it's
what
not
I-
about your building.
it's not about your
Botanica's
building,
election.
it's
The
not
board.
about building one, it's not about building two, and it's not
only
about
about
building three.
Botanica.
It is only about the elections in Botanica.
Because they're trying to protect the individual who's currently not here, because they know that he's going to vote for
Can
the
I-
side.
I want to ask a question about changing the way that we run elections. Not just, I mean, I would like to do it in our building in Botanica, but I think it applies to HOA as well. Having the date of this election, where you have these there's just the mechanical aspects of trying to run an election during the middle of a Christmas break, and all this other
Not
stuff,
too smart.
which doesn't make any sense. The second one is just, this is 2019. Why are we not conducting electronic balloting? Why are we not being able to have electronic referenda? David's firm, Becker and Polikoff, runs something called BP Vote. There are established ways that are actually approved by statute to do this, and we have a higher participation. We've had elections in this community where the election was basically, we didn't have enough people voting. There's a requirement that a certain number of people actually cast ballots, and if you hit the apathy threshold, the election doesn't even register. I mean, I think we need to get into the modern age.
Tony,
Yeah,
the
I'll actually
board
take
is
that.
already done.
I'll actually take that question.
Yeah.
We actually asked our attorney to prepare the documents to send out to the owners. It was a part of a vote that we're gonna have on some improvements to our bathrooms.
Right.
That's one of the things that the folks that aren't here have tried to delay. They're concerned, I think, about the idea of electronic voting. I mean, there's a number of things that we've tried to move forward that we haven't been able to do. But we're all teed up.
Right.
David's written it. There's a form that we send out to all the owners where and it's interesting. You wouldn't have to vote electronically. You'd simply be given the option to. So you
Yeah.
can still vote the old-fashioned way with paper if you want to. But if you want to vote electronically, you could. And I think there's some concern, and the members that are concerned aren't here to express their concern. But there's a concern that could change the dynamics in a way that
Sure,
might
more
not-
people will vote.
Right. And me, I'm all for that. The more people vote, the better. The more people that are here, the better. I don't know the reasoning behind people that don't want other people involved. I mean, I always presumed.
You answered my question.
Right.
I didn't know.
But the first comment, Tony, is a good one, because
Right.
this community has the right to pick a date. It doesn't have to be a specific date. And to the extent it is, and incidentally, I'm beginning to hear this now, this is probably the third or fourth time over the last year, people have had issues about the deadline for when a candidate typically the deadline for when you're supposed to notice your intent to be a candidate, which is the very serious deadline.
Right.
And it behooves management next time around to do a look back and count the days and figure out where we could have an annual meeting where it didn't fall within the holidays.
I don't know if we're any better at Botanica if we do it in the middle of the summer. That's probably not any
Right,
better.
yeah.
No,
But-
I'm not sure.
but we-
Do it.
but-
Want to
but-
do in schools in
How about
session.
after the holiday?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think maybe we should.
Yes.
We
We used to
can
have
push it back a month. Have it
Sure,
instead of be the end of
absolutely.
January, have it the end of February, something like that. No, actually.
January or February?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's unfortunate the way it fell this time is the forms were stuff were due over the Christmas holiday.
I mean, let me make it clear, I represent hundreds of associations, and a lot of them have their meetings in January, so a lot of them, and some of them by requirement. Yours is that the meeting not be more than 13 months before the last meeting. That's the only requirement. So,
Right, so once we move it, then we're good. Then we just keep it there forever.
or move it where you need to. Again, it's not a.
Right.
It doesn't have to be on a particular day.
I just think that
That's a good
overall,
question though, Tony, thank you.
This is
Well,
just turning.
if I may, sorry, Christian, and listen, I want to thank you because I'm aware of the work that this board did over the spectrum. Some of you guys have left now with those major projects, and there's a lot. Some of it's not easy. It's a lot of heavy lifting, and you're coming off the board, so I want to thank you for your service. I've been up there, and I know how thankless the job is. So it's my time to say thank you. So at least you have one person saying
And
thank
especially
you.
for the
Yeah.
the monthly messenger was Christian's. He did the whole thing. He designed it. He called me and other people and pestered me to turn in my article on time. He edited it. He had his staff at his office lay it out. The masthead, the pretty masthead, was all his design. So I hope with Christian leaving the board that we have somebody else on the board that's going to pick up that mantle.
But I doubt it.
How would you like to take my place on the board if you're in Emerald Bay?
I think you might be too smart for
If
that.
I took your position on the board,
Yeah, because I'm, this is
you know what,
getting
I've thought
old.
about that, because I really think that personally, a lot of the problems stem from our board in our building.
Yeah,
And I was actually
understand that.
I was
I've been a-
forced, what you don't know, is that Tony Cameo,
Yeah,
Jorge Cavila, and Luisa tried to force me out of running last year
Why?
oh,
because
so going to why.
they wanted to have another voice because they felt that what we were doing wasn't appropriate and they wanted another vote. And they tried to force me out of running, and when I pushed back and said no, because what I've done, tennis committee, everything on the tennis, the gazebo, the messenger, overall commitment. What have you done? Nothing. You're gonna tell me that you're gonna replace me because you're concerned about the budget that the HOA is managing when we're saving money. You're concerned about what the HOA office is doing when we're running at the best we have in years. No. So I told them where to go, and I said, you want to run, be prepared, and I will take you down. And they backed out, and here I am. But they chose to go after me throughout the year and go behind my back. They chose to, do different things on projects that I worked very hard on. I'm like, you know what? This is petty. This is petty bullshit.
Isn't there a sunshine rule?
No, it's not.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
meetings are
Yes,
supposed to
ma'am.
be public
Yeah.
and notified.
Well, that's
so
a
that
that's a
everything-
problem we've been having, and David referenced it and Christian did, but we have a few board members that want to try to argue everything over email. And we end up with these, and then if they don't like the email, then they copy David into it and say, David, isn't this a problem? And David's recommendation is always the same. You guys should have a meeting. You should try to agree. You should have a vote. And if you can't agree or have a
This is
vote,
what I went to law school
I'm
for.
sorry.
I mean, it's probably about, but like, it's like nursery school level
It's
training.
really more frustrating to have had a meeting. I've been to a couple recently that all seemed very good and everything.
And that's what
seemed
this was.
Great.
We had a-
and then there's debates afterwards about what was and wasn't said.
Yeah, we had a mix-up in the date that was communicated to people about the deadline. So the response was, okay, let's have a meeting, let's talk it out. We should be talking about this in public in front of all the owners, like you said, in the sunshine. Have our attorney here, because if there's a legal aspect, we want to make sure we're not making a legal mistake. And half the board didn't want to have that meeting. I don't know why. I mean, Christian's given his theory. But it's unfortunate, because it would have been nice to have a discussion about the two sides of the issue and which is the smartest way to go. Do we want to follow the rule as the rule no matter what, or do we want to be flexible as we have in the past? And I haven't even made a decision about which side of that issue I'm on. This is the first opportunity we've had as a board to sit down and talk about it. I've ignored all the emails, which I've been trying to do for my spiritual health. And I figured let's have a meeting and we'll talk about it. And I haven't given an opinion on what the right course of action is.
So if you're having a meeting, is there a notice,
There was a notice.
This
Notice it posted.
this was an attempted
last
meeting.
week.
Look, every time we have a meeting,
Posted last week,
you
last
notice
Wednesday, right?
And
When I
they-
said, when I
And they
explained to you
confirmed
is
they
that-
would be here,
is
and
that
then they
What
boycotted.
we've seen
I
is
thought that's
people
different.
trying to decide things over email
Boycotted.
instead of having
Why?
meetings.
Why won't they tell me?
And that's what we're trying
I was
to
always
stop.
asking Tony, excuse me.
I mean, we have stopped.
I'll tell you.
No, you have to stop
I
it.
was-
It's
Of course.
It's not,
Where's
it's
you?
not
You
legal.
know, I was.
Right, absolutely right.
I'm confused.
And we haven't had any meeting on email that we decided things on, but that's kind of what's being attempted here. That's why we wanted to try to have a meeting.
So what are the next steps now?
So what happens now?
Well,
Schedule
We're gonna
another
look up
meeting?
yeah, we have another meeting that's been was scheduled a month ago on Thursday.
Oh.
And there's a
This
number.
week?
Yeah, there's a number
Has
of.
it been posted?
It will be tomorrow.
It's been posted for a while too.
You said it's
Yeah.
Thursday.
Thursday.
This
Yes,
Thursday?
yeah, Thursday. We have
What do you do? Post
48
it
hours.
Monday?
We 48
You
hours.
don't post it a week at least?
Well, actually, we
a week
noticed it in
ahead?
the messenger for last week.
Yeah.
That's not
noticed
right.
for-
People want to know ahead of time. You
No,
can't
no.
just post
Kind
it.
of.
48
Well,
hours.
that's what we're trying to do is 48 hours. But we put it in the messenger.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to, we get it out as much as we
Yeah,
can.
you don't
I
need to email.
didn't know that you had a meeting tonight until I saw it on the board.
It's not a meeting.
It's been out. I'm not.
Well, it's not a meeting because there weren't enough
Yeah.
people.
Today,
Oh,
today.
You don't have a
no,
quorum.
no,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah,
because the
yeah.
four
We could always do a
individuals-
better job marketing the meetings, but we put it in the newsletter, we post it on bulletin boards. I mean, we don't have a lot of
It's
people that
just
want to come to these
the
meetings,
point is,
unfortunately.
the four people who aren't here don't wanna face you. They don't wanna face your questions, they don't wanna have to deal with it, but that's what a board member is supposed to do,
That's
okay?
right.
That's why you elect them, by their act of defiance, they're telling you they don't care about you, or your opinion.
This has been a good discussion. It can continue. I just would like to excuse our attorney and his hourly rate.
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
And thank you, David, for coming, and sorry we wasted your time, but I think it was informative.
Right.
I never met you before, but I'm Sarah Kane.
Yeah,
I used to
you
be
have.
involved with the board.
Well, Sarah, I've been the attorney for the HOA for 20 plus years.
Time was before.
I